Then I heard another voice from heaven say, "Come out of her, my people, so that you will not share in her sins, so that you will not receive any of her plagues. For her sins are piled up to heaven, and God has remembered her crimes. Give back to her as she has given. Pay her back double for what she has done. Pour her a double portion from her own cup. Give her as much torment and grief as the glory and luxury she gave herself. In her heart she boasts, 'I sit enthroned as queen. I am not a widow. I will never mourn.' Therefore in one day her plagues will overtake her, death, mourning, and famine. She will be consumed by fire, for mighty is the Lord God who judges her."
So, Marcus here. We're going to get right into it. When we look at Revelation chapter 18 and we were dealing with Babylon, the Lord said one thing, "Come out of her, my people." Now, when we go back to Elijah, when he talks to the children of Israel, he told them to make this decision. It says in 1 Kings 18, he said, "How long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord be God, follow him. If Baal is God, follow him." So if you feel like America is chosen by the Lord, then follow America. But if you feel like the Lord is saying, is identifying America in a different way, then you need to heed what the Bible say and leave Babylon. So in order to do this, we got to be fully convinced. So because there's so many opinions in the Word of God, people saying different things, today we're going to look at something in a statistic type way. We're going to just look at the history, and then we're going to go forward. And so by looking at history, we can identify who Babylon is, and then we can identify America. So first of all, let's look at Revelation 18.
The merchants of the earth will weep and mourn over her because no one buys their cargoes anymore, cargoes of gold, silver, precious stones, and pearls, fine linen, purple, silk, and scarlet cloth, every sort of citron wood, and articles of every kind made of ivory, costly wood, bronze, iron, and marble, cargoes of cinnamon and spice, of incense, myrrh, and frankincense, of wine and olive oil, of fine flour and wheat, cattle and sheep, horses and carriages, and human beings sold as slaves.
So we understand that by reading Revelation chapter 18 that Babylon has control over trades and goods and kings of the earth. So when we go back to we're going to have to go back to the 1500s, and because this was the beginning of the New World. Columbus, 1492, and then you had a great exploring of all the world, and this was called mostly the Columbian Exchange. Now, the Columbian Exchange means they would go and find whatever country had goods, and they would trade these goods. But something happened. When we look at this very closely, mostly all the goods went to America and Europe, pretty much. Gold, even slaves. They took men from India. They took slaves from India. They took slaves from Africa, and they pretty much brought them to America, and then the goods went from America to Europe. So America and Europe is the ones that benefited back then in the 1500s. So what we're going to do is we're going to move this up till today and see if this the same thing is going on. And really from at this point right here, we can clearly see what are the powers on this earth that's associated with Babylon. Because if you go in and destroy someone else, then the Lord at some time or another will have to retaliate. And we need to look at this really carefully, because we don't want to be a victims of what's going on today. During the Columbian Exchange, one of the reasons why they were so successful is because the Catholic Church did a same type of campaign along with the explorers. It was called the Age of Discovery. So what they did was they sent in the Jesuits. The Catholic Church ordained Europe to go in and conquer the world, and they teamed and they partnered with the Catholic Church by sending in the Jesuits as missionaries. And the missionaries' job was to really, they was wolves in sheep clothing. They brought in so-called Christianity, but keep in mind that through India and Africa, Christianity had already spread it in those areas. It just wasn't the Christianity that the Catholic Church was teaching. So they came in as the good guys and calmed their nerves for being ripped off by the British or the Spaniards or the Portuguese or whoever. So when they conquered these areas, they had the Jesuits on their side, and they had missionaries, which all missionaries are not bad, but the concept on how they go into an area and ease the comforts of people and get them to accept the current situation is what the Lord looks at. And he judges all things, and he looks at the thoughts and intentions of the heart. So the Catholic Church says that the Age of Discovery is a evangelical effort to justify the military conquest of European powers. So basically they just came in to ease your comfort of being killed, destroyed, and your possessions taken away from you. And that's what wolves in sheep clothing do. They come as someone that's innocent, and then they come through and really take what it is that belongs to you. And like I said, the Lord, he looks at the whole picture and not part of it. And that is where, we as Christians come in at, because the Lord said, I don't want you to be partakers of their sin, because his whole ideal about exposing the sin is that you won't be a partaker of it. So we're going to continue to look and read.
The Lord takes his place in court. He rises to judge the people. The Lord enters into judgment against the elders and leaders of his people. It is you who have ruined my vineyard. The plunder from the poor is in your houses. What do you mean by crushing my people and grinding the faces of the poor, declares the Lord Almighty.
So if you was to do a Google search or do any kind of search, you can just put in there where are the poorest cities in the world. 90% of those cities that are at the top as being the poorest is going to be in Africa. So you have to ask yourself the question, why are these the poorest cities? So then you would come back and say, or you can come back and do a search on the top 10 richest cities in the world. Now, some sites may show a little different. Basically, they all the same. It's going to show, China, Russia, a great number of Japan, a great number of U.S. and European countries, London, South Korea, L.A., New York, and Japan. So then what we would do is we would look at this and we would see exactly why are they the richest countries, and we can come up with the conclusion of how things work in this world. Okay, so what we're going to do is, once again, we're going to look at the richest cities and what it is that they do. Okay, so if you look at America, they make machinery and electronics. That's their biggest export. At least that's what it used to be. And China, electronics too. Japan, cars, and most of Europe, aircraft, cars, car parts. Britain, cars, machinery and electronics. Now, here's what the problem is. The problem is this, is that in order to make these things, you have to have natural resources. And most of your natural resources is in Africa. So when we begin to look at Africa, and these are not just ordinary resources. This is gold, diamond, crude oil, uranium, what they use to make nuclear weapons, all different types of coffee grains, et cetera, et cetera. So when the Lord said that you taking the goods of the poor and you putting them in your house, and you not paying them their wages and ripping people off, the Lord said, I'm going to sit and I'm going to judge. So what we need to do is we need to look at this carefully, because see right here where you have petroleum, crude oil, and diamonds, that's the part that's going through most of the civil wars, most of all the different type of killings in Congo and Rwanda. This is where the most valuable stuff is at. Even when we look at the South African gold, pretty much they don't own anything that's there. Namibia, diamonds, copper. I mean, these are top of the line metals and precious jewels, but yet and still they the poorest country. So what we have to look at to see is who benefiting, because if they poor and got all of this, then therefore we need to find out where is the goods of the poor. Now when we look at this, it talks about red as the most profitable countries, and less than nothing is as far as when you get to under 1,000. These are the bank estimates of the gross domestic incomes. So when you look at America, Europe, Japan, they have the top incomes. And when you look at the most precious metals in places like this, and then you see that they don't have any, they in poverty, except for the companies that's that doesn't belong to them, the European companies that are in Northern Africa and Southern Africa. And even this is the darkest part of Africa, and this is Libya, which is under civil war now. So this lets you know who actually benefit from the poor. And you see here that America benefits more than anybody. So therefore you can identify it as Babylon. Now let's look at this. It talks about 2015, the world's largest companies. Wow. 579, Britain 94, China 232. Now Japan 218. Now these countries have the largest companies, and we looked at earlier what exactly do they do. But now look in Africa, how many companies are there? And this is done purposely. This is done purposely by those who've been benefiting from the resources of Africa. And it's just not Africa, but it's all over. And then you will see the difference about where the actual wealth is. So what we're going to do, we're just going to look partially at Saudi Arabia. Let's just take Saudi Arabia. Now, Saudi Arabia export oil to over 65% of the world. Okay, so Africa exports oil and other precious metals, as we saw earlier, to over 65% of the world. Now, let's see what is the difference when you get a chance to keep your wealth versus when someone is stealing your resources. Now, this is Dubai. Now, this is how a city looks when it keeps the income from its exports. This is how it's supposed to look. Now, keep in mind that Saudi Arabia just export oil to over 65% of the world. Now, Africa exports its goods, the Congo and all of them exports its goods all over the world also. And this is how its city looks in Congo. Now, there's a big difference. One get to keep the wealth of their export. The other get their income stolen from them. These are the houses of the ones who keep their incomes. These are the houses that is taken away when income is taken away. This is transportation of those who get to keep their income. This is a transportation of those who don't. And these people are recolonized all over the country, depending on what the mining companies or the excuse is to protect you from danger, but yet and still they mining in all these so-called dangerous areas. And this is the same thing that was done with the native Indians when they was colonized in different places in America until they found gold, and they would move them to another area. So basically, we understand that through Europe and America, they both sisters of the harlot, or they both sisters of the whore. Education in Dubai, education in the Congo. This is what happened when you don't keep your wealth. Entertainment. This just goes to show you the difference. Now, do you think that the Lord is not sitting back and seeing all this? Do you think that the Lord has a deaf ear to what's going on? Now, is everyone free from sin? No. But in this case, who has the greater sin? So this is the reason why when you start dealing with Christians and you start dealing with the people of the Lord, you have to make a decision. Are you loving the pride of this life and loving the pride of Babylon, the luxuries of Babylon? Then in order to do that, in order to consume Babylon's possessions, they have to go and take it from someone else.
This is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters. If anyone has material possessions and sees a brother or sister in need but has no pity on them, how can the love of God be in that person? Dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and in truth.
And you can't be so-called ignorant of this and be innocent in the eyesight of the Lord. So what the Lord is looking at, he's exposing this so you can separate yourself. But don't love the luxuries of Babylon, because it causes heartache and pain to everyone else.
Do not love the world or anything in the world. If anyone loves the world, love for the Father is not in them. For everything in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, comes not from the Father but from the world. The world and its desires pass away, but whoever does the will of God lives forever. Now this was the sin of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters were arrogant, overfed, and unconcerned. They did not help the poor and needy. They were haughty, and did detestable things before me. Therefore I did away with them, as you have seen.
So when we look at Ezekiel chapter 16 and 49, he talks about Sodom's sin. He said that their sin was that they was arrogant, overfed, unconcerned. They did not help the poor and the needy. They was haughty, and they did detestable things before him. The Bible said, therefore he did away with them, as you have seen. So when you look at the sin of Sodom, he didn't say sins. He just said sin, because it's a way of thinking, and that thought is to do the things that are in your heart, the desires that are in your heart, and you don't sacrifice for anybody else. You just look out for yourself, and because of this, you consume all your goods, and you consume somebody else's goods, because you're living for all the desires that are in your heart. Now let's just see real quick what Jesus says that actually defile a man.
He went on, what comes out of a person is what defiles them. For it is from within, out of a person's heart, that evil thoughts come: sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, lewdness, envy, slander, arrogance, and folly. All these evils come from inside and defile a person.
So when we look at Mark chapter 7, it talks about all the things that defile a man, which is the things that come from the heart. Jesus says that. And if you really pay attention, the laws that are of America protect people in the desires of their heart. And when we begin to look at all of this, sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, lewdness, envy, slander, arrogance, folly, you see here that you can actually be protected doing these things. The right for same-sex marriages. Okay, you look at that. And then you look at the Wall Street laws to protect banks. You know, that's greed. Global terrorism, that's an excuse to go in and kill and destroy people, innocent people. Prenuptial agreements. These things protect adultery and all of this kind of stuff. Whatever you disagree in marriage, you can leave and without having any consequences. Capitalism, free market, that's greed. Malice, revenge. It's like the government, you know, when you got whistleblowers and the whistleblowers exposed the things of the government. Well, they came back with the Espionage Act to punish people who try to expose what's going wrong with America. So that's malice. Deceit comes when you got deceptive telemarketing, the emails, spams, and all of this. Everybody saying that they can help you when they looking to get money from you. You know, if you do a search and try to find a job, you got more scam companies than people who really trying to offer you a job. All this stuff is deceit, and it's allowed. Lewdness, free topless equality. It's a law to protect women, to give women the right to walk around with no shirt on. Envy, keeping up with the Joneses, allowing you to go into major debt for something that you don't even need, and continue to give you credit cards and credit cards and credit cards to bring you even more into debt. Why? Just because you envy what your neighbor has. Well, slander is the part where the media can pretty much give you a bad name, and you could be innocent, but they can do that by saying, well, he's a alleged sex offender, or he's a alleged whistleblower, or whatever. So by putting alleged in there, they can actually slander your name, and it's hard to recover from that. Pride, the American patriotism, people going and saying, "Oh, America's the best country," when it's falling. Lack of good sense. The laws support unequal distribution of wealth, which cause major depressions and people to go into heavy poverty, because people's greed and lack of good sense to make the right decisions. So as you can see, these are all the characteristics of Babylon, and you have to make a decision. Is this someplace that you will want to be, or do you want to follow the word of the Lord? But either way it go, you're going to have to answer to the Lord for the reason why you made whatever decision that you made. And what I'm doing is just bringing you information so you can see what the Lord has already revealed in your heart. Now, if the Lord didn't put this in your heart, then I'm not talking to you. But if the Lord put it in your heart, you definitely got a decision to make. And this decision, the days are getting shorter as you go.
Leave Babylon, flee from the Babylonians. Announce this with shouts of joy and proclaim it. Send it out to the ends of the earth. Say, the Lord has redeemed his servant Jacob. They did not thirst when he led them through the deserts. He made water flow for them from the rock. He split the rock, and water gushed out. There is no peace, says the Lord, for the wicked. Isaiah.